Let me ask you one side question on that part of it, because we get into that a little bit later. We can take it on now. Was that, I have not read that original article that you wrote in 2019. My impression was it was more on pronouns and not so much on the science.
Right, so first I wrote a piece on the pronouns. It was called The Transgender Language War. And that actually had nothing to do with transgender people whatsoever. It was about whether states like California and New York, which had statutes that proposed civil and criminal penalties for people who misgendered, I made the argument that that straightforwardly violated our First Amendment. And I actually don't think that was, I mean, although it was somewhat controversial at the time, it was so obviously correct. And in fact, other courts have since said the same thing, which is, in America, the government can't make you say things. So no matter how much you think people should use other people's pronouns, the state can't pass a law mandating it. And that was a simple, I'm a lawyer, and it was a simple argument I made from the First Amendment perspective. That was all. And then that's when a reader first wrote to me, and she said, listen, I've written to every journalist I can think of. I don't know if you'll take this on, but my daughter suddenly identified as transgender out of nowhere. She'd had a lot of mental health issues as a kid, a lot of terrible anxiety and depression, but she was never anything but a girly girl, and we never saw any gender dysphoria. And when she went off to college with a group of her girlfriends, all of a sudden she decided she was trans. And in quick order, she started a course of testosterone. And there are parents like me all across this country, and we're all saying the same thing. This is out of nowhere. It doesn't seem organic to these kids. I know my daughter. And the first thing I did was get in touch with an editor and send all these contacts to an investigative reporter with a lot more experience than I had. And then I waited for the piece to come out. And I waited and I waited. I waited 4 months and nothing came. So at that point, I thought, you know what, this isn't rocket science. Let me find out what I can do here. And I wrote an initial piece for the Wall Street Journal, and that was the piece that had got 1,000 comments from people across the country desperate to tell me their stories. And so at that point, I think that came out in January, maybe 2019, I think. And at that point, I realized there's more than an article here. So that's when I wrote my book proposal.
Wow, and so the crack opened up and you went down it, and it turned out to be a big cave down there, right?
Yes.